What is up, guys? This is Pinzo back with another video today, and what I have for you guys are patch notes. This is patch 0.9.0, and it's big. This is what we've been waiting for. There's a lot of stuff changing, so you guys are just going to have to bear with me. It will take a little bit longer to get through everything, but I will be going as fast as I can while still explaining the meta changes and all that stuff going on in the video. Just before we get into it, as always, guys, if you do go on to enjoy the content, please do be sure to leave a like, comment, and subscribe. In the comments, let me know what you guys think of the patch. Are you going to go back and try Fault again? That kind of thing. I want to know what you guys think of the changes that SMS are giving us. But with that said, let's jump right into the patch notes. First off, big change, items. Items are no longer on a tree system like Smite. They will now be on a recipe system. So if you've played League, this is the same item system as League. Or for those of you who got to try Predecessor a couple weeks ago, it's the same way that Predecessor builds items. Essentially, you build components and you have a recipe to build into an item. Of course, you could just build the whole item first. There will just be a gold price on the item, but you can buy smaller components so that you can get more stats while still building into these bigger items. Personally, I am a Smite player. I voted against this change. I really like the tree system, but I think that might just be because that's what I'm comfortable with. I don't have any issues with the recipe system other than we don't have a consumable slot, so late game, this makes it really messy because you can't place wards without a consumable slot, can't have sentries, that kind of thing. It's just something that they'll have to look at in the future if they decide to add some sort of consumable slot. But with that said, they added a bunch of new items, tweaked a whole bunch of items, and we're going to go over all of those first. First up, we've got a bunch of early game items. These are some starter items and some other just early game better items that you can get rather than just starting tier 1s of items. Starting with Shiny Bangle, this is just a support item, gives you health, armor, and then this passive. What this does is you can execute minions every couple seconds, and when you do that, both people in assist range will get full gold, so you and your carry will still get gold for that, and you will heal. So this is just a way for supports to be able to kind of do something in lane and gives them some more gold. And the thing about a lot of these new items is that they can be upgraded. So you can upgrade this into Bracelet of Opulence, and it basically does the same thing, just a little better. Along with that, we have Scryer's Obelisk. This builds off of Scrying Stone. This is an upgrade to Scrying Stone, and it's basically the same as Scrying Stone with a couple more stats, and it does Scrying Stone's job better. Into the real starter items, these are the ones that upgrade through playing the game. Starting us off, we have Titan's Bow. This is the one that would be mostly on carries. You could play this probably in the solo lane on a couple characters. Gives you some power, some health. You gain lifesteal from the passive, and then the quest is to land basic attacks on enemy heroes. Of course, it has a cooldown, so you can't just instantly get it, but it is interesting. When it upgrades, you don't gain more stats, but you do gain a little more lifesteal. Moving on, Titan's Spellbook is more of the caster version of this starter item. You get some energy, power, some health. You gain a 1 mana regen, which isn't a lot, but upon landing an ability on an enemy hero, you get to double that mana regen. So you get 2 mana regen a second for 5 seconds. I think this passive is incredibly weak. 1 mana regen's cool, but if they really want you to be able to spam abilities on enemy heroes, then they need to increase this amount you get from hitting people. But past that, you do get some extra basic attack damage on lane minions, and you upgrade this by landing abilities on enemy heroes. And then on the upgrade, you just, same stats, more mana regen, that's it. Moving on to Titan's Armor, this is going to be the brawler version of a starter item. After you take damage, you gain health regen for a couple seconds. So you gain like 20 health back after you take armor. I'm assuming getting hit multiple times will refresh this duration and not add to it. The stat on this is just health, so this is going to be an early game bruiser item. If you're building Titan aspect, then this is going to be really good. And then when this evolves, you get to block 5 damage from everything. Really good against minions. Heroes is not as good. I don't know why this is less effective against dots. Like, it sort of makes sense, but I think that it should be effective against dots because that's what it's good against. Anyway, moving into the new real items. Purple items are getting real items put into their trees. Before you had like 1 buyable item in the purple tree, and now you have more. These items are nutty. So first you have Phantom Blade. This item has physical power, flat penetration, CDR on a physical item, and it's, I want to highlight this. It's 2,900 gold. Incredibly cheap. 400 gold less than Gravedigger's Crossbow, which is also a very strong item. But Out of combat, you gain 75 move speed. This is a flat amount. It's 3/4 of boots. Boots give you 100 move speed. So this makes you really, really fast. And then the active is on for 6 seconds, your basic attack steal 10% of move speed. This active I don't have a problem with. It's a relatively short duration on a relatively long cooldown. So I think the active is good. I think that this passive is going to be completely busted. You're just going to buy Shades and then rush Phantom Blade, and you're saving a whole bunch of gold because you save, 300 gold on Shades, and then you save a bunch more gold going into Phantom Blade. This is going to be crazy. This needs to just be stronger. You can't have an item with strong stats and a strong passive, because then it's really good. If you want an item to have really strong stats and a really strong passive, you increase the price. Next, Demonic Embrace also gives power, pen, and this one gives health. A little more expensive, and this is just a comeback mechanic. When you take damage under 35% health, you gain 20% lifesteal and 20 power for 6 seconds. This is just to allow you to maybe turn a fight that's really close or something like that. I think this is going to be an okay item. I don't see this being game-breaking. Enlightened Saber gives power, pen, CDR, and is relatively cheap at 2,800 gold. And this is a 5-head passive. Basically, when you're spotted by a ward, you reveal all wards within 600 units of you, and then you can destroy them for 8 seconds as you can see them. I think this is going to be better the higher your MMR is. The smarter you are, this is going to be a better item. It'll be really good on like Kalari. So I would expect to see this item played. This Phantom Blade item is the one that I'm worried about. Next up, Twin Blast got a full sound effects overhaul. They went over this on the dev stream. It sounded pretty solid. The ult sounds fantastic. The nades sound really good. The basic attacks don't sound incredible to me. They're just a better version of his old basic attacks, but it's a good change nonetheless. Next, bug fixes. These are just small bugs. And then we get into balance. This is a big section. So, super minions. Finally nerfed. Super minions have been the bane of every player ever existence for a really long time. Basically, so health per 90 seconds is when they would increase every 3 waves, and that's going down, so minions will be less tanky. And then they removed the AoE damage being less effective. Because there are so many abilities in the game that are AoE, right? How many abilities in the game are single target? Like Thunk? Yeah. So that's going away, which is really nice. Now your casters can actually kill super minions. Moving into the items, Gurgias, you have the Aura Cripple going up, physical armor going up, and then the cost goes up to compensate. A lot of these item changes are purely because they are moving from the tree system into the recipe system. These items are just getting tweaked so that they fit in with the stats that you're buying to build into them, and that's where you're going to see a lot of these changes come from. A-Shot, move speed increase on the active. That's fine, 3%, not a whole lot, but it will be noticeable. APOC, this is just to make the item fit into its tree. Arc Amp, I'm going to highlight this one. This is nutty, 20 to 30%. So I just want to throw out Bellica Void Bomb has 100% scaling. With this at 30%, you're going to, late game, Bellica will have 900 magical power with this at 30%. Void Bomb's going to be hitting for well over 1,000. I would just be really careful. I would expect this to go down to 25 if they want to keep it buffed. And then moving on, a lot of support items are getting health and mana taken off of them, the regen, just because they're moving it on to something else, or they had a plan for this. I'm not exactly sure. If you want to watch the dev stream, then it's as a VOD on their Twitch channel, twitch.tv/StrangeMatterStudios. You can go watch it where they detail this kind of stuff there. So you're getting more armor, cost goes down, still has a pretty solid passive. I would expect this to still get picked up very frequently. Bloodlust, the heal from dashing goes up a little bit. You get a little more power from the trees. Move speed from Cosmic Intervention goes up. Doesn't make this item a whole lot better. Cursed Remnant, trauma goes down to bring it in line. You get a little flat energy pen. This is the stat that I'm going to worry about here, but to compensate, you get a little more expensive. Devourer's Blade, your shield is reduced by 18, which doesn't really matter, but you get some more power, and that's really nice. Doombringer Rifle, physical power goes up. So this is important because the reason that you would pick Doombringer Rifle is for the passive, the 30% pen, but the other pen item, whose name I can't remember right now, has more power and flat pen on it, so this is going to actually rival that early game. Just be careful. Next, Eldritch Flame. So this item is getting, in my opinion, a net buff. You're getting a 200 gold cost reduction. You're getting a little more health. The gold is what I'm looking at. This item being 200 gold cheaper is pretty big, but you are getting the burn damage reduced. This doesn't matter. 3% of your target's maximum health. That's already kind of negligible if you're hitting someone that has energy armor, because this is getting hit by their energy armor. This is dealing damage to them, which is getting negated by their energy armor. But the fact that this hits Orb Prime and Raptor is what makes this item really good. This 2% reduction doesn't change that a whole lot. I would still expect this to be a very, very picked item, and nothing really about this changes that. Essence of Time, just you get your regen removed, but your stats go up. Fist of the Titan, this one's dumb. So your active now works passively. If you don't know what the active is, it allows you to do 2% of your maximum health as physical damage on your auto attacks. It's like a better Gravedigger's Crossbow. This used to be an active for like 6 seconds, you could do this, and now it's a passive. With this price reduction to 3,000 gold and no stat reductions, this item is going to be bonkers on literally any character that builds green. What this does is, if I have 3,000 health, 2% of 3,000 is 60-ish, 75-ish. My math isn't exact, but close to that. So this is essentially another version of Gravedigger's Crossbow that gives you extra damage. It's really, really good with this price reduction. If it was still 3,400, I wouldn't be worried about it. But with the price reduc, be careful. Gob Glue, these are just because of the new recipe system, get some increase. Gravedigger's Crossbow, I think this item was already good. This buff just makes it a little better. 5 to 10%. I think that this will make it better in lane. This doesn't affect junglers too much, but in lane, that sustain's going to be really nice. Wraps goes up. Jar of Hearts gets some more lifesteal. Matter Limiter. This is a really, really big nerf to an item that personally I didn't think was too crazy. It was pretty solid against anyone not building Rook, and Rook was pretty bad, so I get it. But this is essentially you're paying 300 extra gold for 15 power. Pretty big nerf. Wouldn't expect this item to be seen a whole lot. Next up, Nirvana Jewel. This is essentially just changing the energy armor to physical armor so that you now have Warlock's Aegis for energy armor and Nirvana Jewel for physical armor, and you have options. PS is getting a pretty big buff, just another 150 health. Pretty solid if you're running Titan. This is nice, quality of life. Purity of the Ancients is just getting the same treatment as all the other support items. Quantum Shift gets a net buff, kind of. The power, I think, really mattered on this item to make it good, and it's gone, so we'll see. Robe of Miracle is getting the support item treatment, so is Siren's Call, but this 300 mana is really, really nice. Don't look past that. That's a big change. Telepath's Trinket getting the support item treatment. Traveler's Augment getting 20 move speed will really matter on certain supports. Narbash, Steel will really use this move speed well, but I don't think it's game breaking. I think it's just a nice quality of life thing. Warlock's Aegis, blah, yeah, whatever. Warlock's Opus, on the other hand, this is a pretty big change. So you're getting more power, you're getting more percent pen. 5% more is quite a bit, but you're getting a 200 gold increase. This item was really cheap for the stats it gave, so I think this is bringing it in line to where it should be. Next up, Aspects. So Magician getting a bit of a nerf. Your ult cooldown's not getting reduced by as much, but you're getting a little more mana back. Rook, on the other hand, is getting a pretty big buff. I already thought that this aspect wasn't as bad as people think that it is, especially if you're playing a frontliney, brawly tank. This aspect's actually pretty solid with the amount of CC in the game, but you're getting 3 more armor per CC. Moving on to the heroes. First thing you will notice is that Boris is not getting touched in this patch. Yay! This sub 15% pick rate hero in a game with 18 heroes doesn't get picked. Yeah, I'm being a little passive-aggressive. I really, really wish they would touch the characters that need touched, but not in this patch. Hopefully next patch, fingers crossed, buff Boris, hashtag it, tweet it, blah, blah, blah. But moving on to the buffs we did get, a lot of cooldown changes. Countess, early game cooldowns reduced, late game cooldowns the same. Meh. Decker, so you're getting your mana restoration from your passive is going down a little bit. This is just to bring her in line. If you're hitting your ability, she was really oppressive, so this is to bring her in line with the rest of the supports. Your Q is getting some damage reductions because people were building her caster and she was OP, and now that'll be just a little more difficult. Ion Bot, this is once again just getting a small damage reduction. It's not a lot, but late game you'll probably feel it. I don't know. I don't play Decker. Moving on, Gideon. So your passive is getting a pretty big buff. 8% move speed at every rank. This will be really noticeable at like level 6, 7, 8. And then your Q, your big meteor, getting a huge cooldown reduction to 8 seconds at all levels. This is pretty nutty when most characters are building Mana Lens as their first item, and then you get 20% CDR from that. This is down to 6.4 seconds, so that's a really big buff. Greystone also getting the CDR treatment. His Q, his fiery swords, down to 10 seconds at all levels. Little nerf late game, but you won't feel it because the early game will feel better. Your E, your disarm, getting a pretty solid buff to the early game in the cooldown department. And then your jump is being nerfed a little early game just to make it easier to track characters like this down. Kalari gets her attack speed hit. This is a pretty small buff. Your early clear is going to be a little worse now, but I don't expect this to change her true power level. Kai, I don't even know what they're doing with this character. His E is getting a buff. I don't think I've ever used Chimera's E. I gotta be honest. I don't think I've ever actually used this ability correctly because I don't think there's a correct way to use it. Anyway, Quang, you get this shield health bonus was what they gave him in the last patch, and they're just reverting that because it was a little too strong. And then your ult is getting a huge cooldown nerf. So this is going to hit it all game long. The 120 at rank 1 is huge. 2 minutes at rank 1. And this is mostly for the solo lane, where you toss your sword down, you recall, and you ult back to lane. You'll be able to do that less often. Overall, the shield nerf hurts a little bit, but I don't think this changes the power level of the character too much, so I still think you'll see him played a fair amount. Belica, Void Bomb. This one's nutty. Also getting the Gideon treatment. 8 seconds at all levels. Once again, I'm going to restate that Belica's Void Bomb has a 100% energy power scaling on it, so that this Void Bomb is hitting at 8 seconds. You'll be able to double Void Bomb waves and kill the range creeps with 2 Void Bombs at like level 4. This is pretty crazy. Buckshot getting its cooldown changed. Stronger early game, weaker late game. Muriel. So this is some cool changes, I guess. So you're getting a little more auto attack damage. And then the cooldown on your Q is getting a pretty solid buff. This is her poke. Solid changes, I guess. Does a little less damage. Mana reduced. So those are both nice. I think that this ability, it's a net buff all around. Her right mouse button is getting a cooldown increase, but mana cost decrease. That part doesn't matter. Move speed, this part matters. So this is going from 44% to 55% late game. She was already impossible to catch late game. This move speed, when used correctly, is pretty nutty. I think I would be careful around this ability. Narbash. So on the dev stream, they said Narbash was not performing very well because he's supposed to be like this melee tank and he wasn't, or something like that. So they're just making him tankier. That's all that this is. More health, more armor, and then you gain more armor per level, like a substantial amount. So they're just making him tankier, and then your autos hit a little less hard early game, but they scale a little better and you get less attack speed. So you'll hit a little harder, a little slower. Should feel more like a tank. I already thought he felt pretty good, but I don't think these are bad changes. The March cooldown is pretty big late game. 10 seconds late game is you're going to feel that. Early game, not so much, not as strong an ability early game, but late game 10 seconds is really low. And then your Thunk going from 16 to 12 at rank 1 is huge. Narbash can be incredibly aggressive now. I would be really careful jumping into games against Narbash because he will just run at you. And moving on, Sevarog. This is a character that hasn't been touched in a while. He's getting his auto attack damage increased per level, so you get to hit 18 damage harder late game. You'll probably feel this a tiny bit early game jungle if that's what you're playing. I'm not so sure. Your Siphon, though, is getting a pretty solid cooldown reduction. 2 seconds at rank 1 is pretty big, and then ending at the 5-second mark still. Whereas your Subjugate is getting nerfed a little bit, buffed a little bit. Not as noticeable, but a little weaker late game. And then his right mouse button, his dash, is getting the same treatment. Cooldown goes up a little bit. I didn't think this ability was crazy strong, but I don't think this is a bad place. They're obviously worried about movement being too strong, so I don't think this is a horrible change. And then we have Steel getting his basic attack damage increased a little bit. This is just to bring him in line with the other melee tanks. I think this is a fine change. And then you get the Steel nerfs. Ultimate in cooldown increased substantially. 2 minutes rank 1 is pretty big. 30 more seconds, and then it goes down a little bit, ending at 80 seconds. I don't think this is a bad change. I think that it will definitely dumb down his power level, but I think that this is the spot where it should be. This ult is incredibly potent, and this will help you be able to play around it. It felt like it was always up, so this will help a little bit early game. And then Shield Bash getting a second off of its cooldown. This is going to also help early game to compensate for this Shield Crash nerf early game. So I would expect Steel to still be a pretty solid character, especially with the new tank items coming in. And then finally, Twin Blast's dash gets travel duration decrease, so it's faster. But guys, that is the end of the patch notes. That's all the patch notes we've got today. This patch does go live at 6 p.m. EST on November 22nd. That's Sunday. 6 p.m. should be about the time this video goes live. So you guys will be able to play this patch all week. It's super hype. I will be testing it out on stream tomorrow, twitch.tv/PinzoDunzo. Be there, be square. As always, do let me know in the comments. I'm really curious what you guys think of the patch notes. If you have any questions, comments, concerns, leave them in the comments and I will respond to them. I'm really curious what you guys think of this new patch, what SMS is doing with the game. I'm really curious. As always, if you did enjoy the content, please do leave it a like and subscribe. It really helps me out a lot. It's just a button for you guys, but it makes me know that you enjoy the kind of content that I'm putting out. But as always, I have been Pinzo. This video is Dunzo. Thank you guys for watching, and I will see you guys in the next one.